The masked people who only knock once. It was nearly midnight when I first noticed the figure at the end of the street, standing perfectly still beneath a flickering lamp, burlap mask glinting faintly in the light. No one else was around. The air was thick and still, every breath hanging like smoke, every shadow stretched unnaturally across the asphalt. I watched as more appeared, silently emerging from dark corners, moving slowly, each figure spaced evenly. Their presence unnerving, precise, as if choreographed by some unseen hand. One of them approached my neighbor's house. They stopped at the door. One knock, slow, singular, echoing. Then they retreated a few steps and waited. I couldn't move. My body froze. Something about the simplicity of that one knock, deliberate and final, made my stomach turn, my skin crawl. Another figure mirrored it at the next house. One knock, silence, observation, then retreat into the shadows, blending with darkness without leaving a trace. I tried to call the police. Line dead. My phone showed no signal. Even my text messages wouldn't send. The street had become unreachable. Lights flickered, motion sensors briefly activated, illuminating empty driveways, empty lawns, no figures visible. Yet I knew they were there, waiting, patient, watching. I peeked through my window. One figure stood at a distant mailbox, tilting its head, observing, considering, judging. Its mask had no eyes, yet it seemed aware of my gaze. The knocking pattern repeated nightly, never more than once per house. No noise beyond that single tap. Yet the dread lingered, stretching hours after their departure. Cameras recorded nothing. No shadows, no movement, only empty yards, empty streets, silent evidence of something impossible slipping in and out of reality. Neighbors whispered among themselves. Stories grew. One knock per house. Only one. Always. Every time. Pattern confirmed. Nothing stolen. No damage. Just observation. One night, a neighbor opened the door after a knock. Nothing. Empty porch. Faint disturbance in the dust. He swore he saw footprints leading nowhere. I stayed up, heart hammering. My front door shook lightly, though I knew no one had touched it. One knock rang out from the street corner, singular, perfect. Each time they knocked, the sound echoed unnaturally long, quah, as if the street itself amplified it, reverberating into the walls, pressing into minds of anyone awake. The group moved like shadows attached to the architecture of the neighborhood, pacing along sidewalks, tosing, one knock at each door, then continuing in silence, unmoving, patient. I considered leaving. Walking outside meant crossing paths with them. But inside, I could feel their awareness, stretching, measuring, tracking every movement I made. One night, the tallest figure paused in the middle of the street, head tilted toward my window. I swear it waited for me to react. Then it moved again, precisely, calculating, pacing to the next house, performing the same singular knock with measured rhythm, leaving nothing behind, taking nothing, offering only dread. Neighbors began locking doors multiple times, checking cameras obsessively, staying awake, watching the street. Yet no matter what precautions, the knock came, precise, singular, inevitable. Windows rattled in the wind, or was it their presence vibrating the street itself? Every gust carried whispers. Couldn't understand. Soft syllables layered in rhythm with the knocks. Recorded audio. Nothing human. Footsteps, too soft, too deliberate, synchronized, echoing off asphalt and walls, but not captured on any camera footage. Even when asleep, the knock haunted dreams, singular, slow, Perfect, not random, not accidental, deliberate, observant, patient, calculating. Some neighbors reported shadows bending unnaturally, stretching across lawns, moving independently, almost like darkness itself had life, tethered to the masked figure's presence. Attempts to confront them failed. They disappeared into shadows, leaving no trace, no footprints, no fingerprints, nothing. Just the echo of that one knock lingering in memory. The neighborhood changed. Sleep became impossible. Doors bolted. Curtains drawn, but the knock came regardless. A reminder that vigilance cannot outpace patience. I saw them from my porch one night. 5 figures, standing in the street, masks voided, posture rigid. One knocked, then turned slowly, guiding the others silently away. Even when the street seemed empty, the knock returned. Always from a different house, singular, perfect, measured, teaching dread through rhythm and repetition. Some nights, I swear I saw them reflected in windows, silhouettes that shouldn't exist, moving with impossible geometry, tilting heads toward rooms, assessing, noting, calculating. The police could do nothing. Evidence vanished. Footage captured nothing. Only the houses remained, standing like victims of a ritual nobody could understand. I stopped sleeping at night. Each knock sent my heart into a panic, even when I couldn't hear it, even when the street was silent, even when alone. They taught the neighborhood fear. Patient, quiet, unyielding, singular knocks, observation only, nothing more, yet enough to make everyone question reality, safety, and every sound in the night. And one morning, doors left open, windows ajar, lights flickering, nothing stolen, only evidence that the masked people had passed through, leaving dread behind like smoke. They return every night, silent, patient, singular, and the street waits, knowing the knock will come. When they walked the Cul-de-Sac, it started on my street. It's just one report. Neighbors heard slow footsteps outside around 3 in the morning. Nothing else, just footsteps, deliberate, echoing across empty asphalt. The next night, more appeared. 5 figures, tall, cloaked, masks stitched crudely, moving silently between driveways, standing at doors, or surveying each house like students in a classroom. Windows rattled slightly in the wind. The masked ones didn't touch anything. No door handles turned, no glass shattered. Only observation, patient, meticulous, almost surgical. I watched from my living room. They paused at the neighbor's house across the street, leaning slightly, heads tilting as if measuring every window and lock. One raised a hand, not to knock, up to signal. Just lifted slowly, fingers stiff, almost testing the air itself, then dropped it and continued pacing. The hum of streetlights mixed with faint whispers I couldn't understand. The sounds weren't human, not exactly. They were rhythmical, deliberate, synchronized with every measured step. I grabbed my phone to call the police. No signal. The network had vanished, silent. Even my text messages wouldn't send. My neighborhood was cut off. The cul-de-sac had changed overnight. Motion lights flickered sporadically. Doors that were locked seemed subtly loose. Windows left slightly open. Signs of intrusion, though nothing was stolen. I peeked through the curtains. One figure stood in the middle of the road, swaying slightly, head tilted. Another crouched by a mailbox, inspecting the latch without touching it. The figures never spoke. Breathing was slow, exaggerated, almost mechanical, synchronized like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The shadows they cast seemed thicker than reality allowed. Every night, the group grew, sometimes 7, sometimes more. They never scattered, always moving as one, circling houses, pausing at doors, then vanishing into darkness for a few minutes before returning. Neighbors reported strange feelings. Cold air in hallways, lights turning on alone, locks clicking without contact. Nothing was taken, nothing destroyed, only awareness that the masked ones had been inside. I set up cameras. They recorded nothing. No one entered, no one exited. Only the yard and street were visible. The figure's presence remained invisible to technology. Then came the scratches. Faint lines on wood frames, small chips along door edges, subtle yet impossible to ignore. Each mark seemed purposeful, deliberate, almost communicative. One night, the tallest figure paused at the front door. It tapped 3 times. Slow, measured. The sound echoed unnaturally. No one inside responded. No one dared move. Another figure leaned near a window, head cocked, inspecting the interior. The mask glimmered faintly under the streetlight. No eyes, just empty holes staring at nothing or everything. I tried reasoning with them, whispered from my window, called out. Silence. Only the soft thrum of their steps, in reply, synchronized, deliberate, like a ritual unfolding. The group started leaving subtle marks, outside houses, scratches on door frames, small impressions in lawns. It's nothing harmful, nothing destructive, but undeniable. They were mapping the neighborhood. Neighbors stopped sleeping. Lights stayed on. Everyone checked cameras. Footage captured nothing unusual. Yet, at 3 a.m., the hum of slow footsteps returned, echoing off asphalt and concrete. I finally stepped outside. It's cool, hit my chest, sharper than normal, almost sentient. Shadows twisted across sidewalks. 5 figures paused, waiting, tilting heads, as if considering whether I belonged. One walked slowly to a mailbox, ran fingers along edges, leaving faint scratches, then returned to the street. The others remained spaced evenly, always moving in perfect formation. Time lost meaning. Nights felt longer, distorted. The figures never spoke, never ran, never left. Only measured pacing, observation, patient, studying human reaction, teaching me to exist under their scrutiny. On the 3rd night, I saw movement between houses I didn't recognize. Figures stepping through alleys, pausing at backyards, glancing at windows. My street was no longer safe. The whispers grew louder in my skull, overlapping, unintelligible, urging me to leave, warning me, pressing inward. Even indoors, I could feel their presence outside every wall. Lights flickered, doors shifted, locks clicked. My neighbors' homes bore subtle evidence of intrusion, though nothing tangible, nothing claimable. Only fear, uncertainty, and the impression of being watched. I stayed inside, breathing shallow, trying not to look outside. But every 3 a.m., shadows danced across the blinds, steps echoed, and the patient pacing began again. I considered leaving, packing, moving. But the moment I opened the door, the figures would appear. I could feel their awareness extending beyond sight, beyond physical boundaries. Every night, the same. Motion lights flash, figures pause, steps measured, whispering grows. Marks left on frames, mailboxes, steps. The cul-de-sac slowly adapting to their rhythm, their presence. And one night, they will stop pacing, stand at every house, lift their masks, and the neighborhood will know they were never alone. The neighborhood with no doors left closed. It started with a rumor, masked figures walking the streets late at night. No one believed it at first, but footage began to appear from security cameras around the neighborhood. The figures were tall, dressed in dark robes, with crudely stitched burlap masks. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if every step was measured and rehearsed before being executed. Neighbors posted clips online. The figures were never running, never speaking, never breaking anything. Simply stood outside doors, watching, waiting, testing the houses one by one under flickering streetlights. At first, authorities dismissed it as teenagers playing pranks. But teenagers don't move with that patience, that deliberate pacing. They don't vanish without leaving a trace while standing perfectly still. The first confirmed incident happened on Maple Drive. A man reported 3 slow knocks on his front door at 3:12 a.m., followed by the sound of footsteps pacing across the lawn. By the time police arrived, the yard was empty. No footprints, no stolen property, just the lingering tension that someone or something had been there. Measuring and observing the house, other neighbors checked their cameras. More footage surfaced. Shadows elongated unnaturally across sidewalks, figures moving slowly, always facing houses, always remaining just out of clear focus, like ghosts studying the streets. Some videos showed 5 figures, others more. Each one wore a burlap mask with crude eye holes, standing spaced evenly apart. Their posture rigid and purposeful, not casual, not playful. It became an obsession. Residents stayed up late watching monitors, waiting for any sign, fearing what they might see, yet unable to turn away from the hypnotic, silent movement of these masked visitors. The pattern was always the same. Figures approached specific homes, never touched anything, never stole anything, then disappeared into the darkness, leaving the neighborhood eerily quiet once more. One night, I saw them myself. Motion lights flickered outside my window. At the end of the driveway, 5 tall shapes moved slowly toward the front yard, faces hidden in burlap. They didn't walk quickly. They didn't make a sound. Their movements were deliberate, each step calculating the space around my house. It's measuring distance, doors, windows, angles, every edge in the yard. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I thought they could hear it. One stepped forward, pausing beneath the porch light, head slightly tilted as if listening, studying, learning. Then the others followed, pacing around the perimeter, maintaining perfect spacing, circling the house with patience I didn't understand, as though performing some ritual without words. I tried to call the police. No signal. My phone's screen stayed blank, unresponsive, as if the neighborhood itself had cut me off from help. One of the figures stopped at the side door. 3 slow knocks. Then it stepped back. Silence returned. It didn't move toward the door again, only stared, waiting for a response that never came. The tallest one tilted its head. I swear, it glanced directly at my window. Even with the lights off, the angle of its posture suggested awareness, attention, focus on me alone. They left slowly, marching down the street with the same rigid, deliberate pacing, disappearing into darkness, leaving an impossible stillness that pressed against my chest and stomach. Morning brought unease. Doors I locked were sometimes unlocked, windows slightly ajar. Nothing stolen, nothing damaged. Subtle reminders that someone had been inside, testing boundaries, leaving evidence of observation. Neighbors shared footage again. Figures moving silently across yards, stopping at every house, performing the same slow, exact movements. Masks still hiding every face, every identity, every intent. People began drawing comparisons, chalk marks, shadows, subtle disturbances in lawns. A pattern forming across the streets, invisible in daylight, terrifying in the quiet of night. The next night, motion lights flickered on one street after another. Residents hid behind curtains, watching their monitors, listening for any sound, hearing only slow steps in the darkness. I stepped outside once, just to glimpse them. Shadows flitted across sidewalks. 5 figures paused at my neighbor's driveway, masks stitched tightly, posture rigid, unyielding, careful observers of every door and window. One moved closer to a front door, paused, tapped lightly on the frame, not aggressive, not loud, just precise, deliberate, then stepped back into the rhythm of the group. The figures never spoke, only slow breathing, faint, synchronized with their measured steps, as if the street itself had become their stage for an unseen performance. Cameras captured nothing as they entered the yards. Only the exit was ever visible. Steps leaving no prints, movements leaving no disturbance, just a lingering tension in the air. Sometimes a figure would pause midway down the street, glance back, and lift its mask slightly. Inside, darkness, void, nothing human, just empty shadows behind burlap fabric. The air in the neighborhood changed. People stopped walking outside at night. Tains stayed shut. Everyone felt the weight of observation, as if the streets had become a room full of unseen eyes. Even without evidence of entry, houses felt smaller, walls closer, yards more exposed. Every sound carried farther. Every shadow seemed deliberate, intentional, holding secrets just beyond comprehension. I stopped leaving lights on, stopped checking cameras obsessively. The presence persisted, patient, silent, watching, learning, measuring. Now, nights are never quiet. Motion lights flicker randomly. Doors appear unlocked in the morning. Windows slightly open. Everyone feels it, but no one can explain why. And still, at 3 in the morning, the masked figures return, slowly, deliberately, across every street. They walk, they watch, and they wait for the next house that thinks it's safe.